The third suspect arrested yesterday in connection with the burglary at President Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala Phala farm in Bela-Bela, Limpopo is appearing in the local magistrate's court alongside two other accused today. The court has heard that David Joseph handed himself to the police yesterday. He's the brother of one of the other accused, Floriana. The state has indicated that it would not be opposing bail for Floriana, who has a newborn baby who solely depends on breastfeeding. The three face charges of housebreaking, theft and money laundering. They allegedly stole $580,000 US from President Cyril Ramaphosa's farm. Let's take this discussion further with political analyst Professor Dirk Kotze. Prof, good afternoon and thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much.
Prof, let's look at what's coming to the fore. Three suspects now been arrested. They appear in court in connection to the Phala Phala robbery. And we obviously also know that the South African Reserve Bank cleared President Cyril Ramaphosa of wrongdoing in the Phala Phala saga. What should we be reading into this, given the timing of these arrests?
Well, I think one can assume that the Phala Phala situation or incident will certainly play a role next year in the election campaigns of the opposition parties. Therefore, I think from a timing point of view, this is possibly the best time now to raise this, to bring it to court before the election, that it is not too close to the election and therefore imposes itself or strengthens actually the emphasis on the Phala Phala situation. And then I think it is also that there was still the expectation of what the outcome will be from the Hawks investigation. All the others, you've mentioned already some of them. The Public Protector's report is available, the SABC report is available, the report of the Reserve Bank is available, and the vote in Parliament against the impeachment of President Ramaphosa, that happened also. So the only one that was still outstanding was that of the Hawks. And I think what we are seeing now is that this will be presented as the outcome of the Hawks investigation. So they focus on the theft and not so much on any aspect with respect to President Ramaphosa himself. And I think this is the way in which it is presented, therefore, as almost a conclusion of all the investigations that have taken place.
Thank you, Prof, for that context, because there are some more questions that still linger. But at this point, looking at how the Phala Phala matter had been handled, perhaps as the president bids for a second term come elections next year, are you satisfied with the manner in which the investigations were unfolded? And with the gaps that remain, what are some of the lingering questions you still have?
Well, there are some questions about, for example, the fact that the transaction hasn't been concluded in terms of the way in which the Reserve Bank presented it. And therefore, there are some questions with respect to that. To what extent happened that? How did that money come into South Africa? Whether that money was actually meant for the ANC, as many people speculate about that, or whether it was indeed simply a transaction that was related to the buying of game on the farm. I think what is also some question, maybe one should say also this, and that is that in the investigations from either of these institutions I've mentioned, whether it's the Reserve Bank or the Public Protector or SABC, focused very much on a very narrow mandate that each one of them interpreted is their responsibility. So there wasn't really an overarching investigation that looked at all the different aspects altogether in an integrated way. The one that came closest to that was the investigation of the panel in Parliament, but that was ultimately rejected in the vote by Parliament itself. So that report, and I think there will be lots of references to that report specifically by the opposition parties. In terms of an official status, it does not have any official status anymore, and can therefore not be the basis for any form of investigation further on, or for prosecutions. But I think these are some of the elements which some people will say, and especially the opposition parties will say, well, that means that this situation is still contested, that there is not an absolute clarity about what is the situation.
No, absolutely, Prof, because some are also questioning in relation to the transactions that had been completed, whether the buyer, Mustafa, had received his buffalo. Does the president have to repay back that money? Some are questioning where Arthur Fraser is in all of this, and did he compromise the safety of the president in his public life? What's also coming to the fore on those fronts?
Yes, I think the situation with respect to Arthur Fraser is something which hasn't been resolved yet. We all know that it happened. He made it public just before last year's national conference when President Ramaphosa was a presidential candidate for the ANC's position. Since then, he has more or less disappeared from the scene. I think in that respect, the question is, was that meant primarily to serve a purpose at the time of the elections at the ANC's conference, or can this seize evidence stand on its own feet? These are uncertain matters that we, at this point in time, have no answers for. And I suspect we are never going to have really answers for this. Because once this court case has been concluded, and I think they want to conclude it as quickly as possible, that will then officially be regarded as the end of the Phala Phala situation or the case. And then it depends whether it will become more of a political issue in the hands of the opposition parties.
Prof, just very quickly, newly appointed public protector Kollega Galeka will in fact be opposing the HBR Foundation's bid to overturn a report exonerating President Cyril Ramaphosa. At this point, what does this also reflect? Does it also shine a spotlight, a tainted spotlight rather, on the image of her office as the report stands in conflict to the independent report findings as well? Just very quickly as we conclude.
I've read the report, and it's a very convincing report. I don't think there's going to be a good chance that it will be set aside, that it will be reviewed, and that the court will come to a conclusion that she made mistakes. That is why I said earlier on, they interpreted all these investigative components, institutions, interpreted the mandates in a very narrow matter. She did it in the same way. And I think in terms of the mandate of the public protector, she came to a conclusion which will be very difficult to challenge.
Right, Prof, thank you for your time. We'll leave that conversation there. Thank you for weighing in. Professor Dirk Kotze, political analyst, weighing in as investigations continue. We know that 3 suspects have now appeared in court with regards to the Phala Phala robbery.